Edgar Allan Poe was a student, a soldier, a gambler, and a literary critic, but is best known for his tormented poems and agonized, dark stories that established him as a genius of literature. Many histories have been documented about his life, which was troubled and blighted with poverty, but we're here to discuss what I believe has not before been formally recognized: Edgar Allan Poe's addiction to love in order to cope with adversity. To briefly summarize, Poe lost his mother to TB when she was only 24. Edgar was only 3 at the time and was then taken in by the Allan family. Poe adored his new stepmother and unfortunately also lost her to TB. Edgar had already begun to idealize the women in his life as angelic and the source of love, and he carried an image of his own deceased mother with him. In order to seek relief from the genius and poverty that plagued him his entire life, Edgar Allan Poe sought alcohol, artistic endeavors, and gambling, but I believe, most of all, love. When we're in love, powerful natural chemicals are released in the brain that ease pain and can instill happiness. The pleasure and reward centers of the brain are activated, and I believe Edgar Allan Poe's brain either became wired to turn to love as a painkiller, or he was born with a predisposition to be amorous. Poe was born 215 years ago at the time of this documentary, and his work is still relevant and revered by the entire world. He died when he was 40 years old, 175 years ago. In his short life, he struggled with financial difficulty and possibly his sanity, but found comfort and relief in love. He also sought it in alcohol and some say opium. But one constant was always front and center in Poe's life: love. We must admit, love can be a huge distraction that can lift our misery. There are many documentaries detailing the life of Edgar Allan Poe, but we will focus on his loves. Poe became engaged to his childhood sweetheart, Elmira Shelton. When Poe joined the U.S. Army, he learned that Elmira had married someone else, so next. Edgar became obsessively infatuated with his 12-year-old cousin Virginia and managed to marry her when she was 13. He was 26 years old. It certainly couldn't have been a meeting of the minds between two intellectuals, but Edgar Allan Poe adored her beyond reason, and she was the love of his life for 11 years until she too died of tuberculosis. Mr. Poe had nursed his darling for 4 to 5 years in her infirmity. This took its toll, and Edgar took to drinking in order to alleviate the pain. It is said that Virginia was the famous Annabel Lee. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. Edgar Allan Poe, 1850. Poe was always crushing on someone, and sometimes wrote the same love letters to different women at the same time. Sarah Helen Whitman, a professional writer, met through literary circles, exchanged love poems with Poe, and the two became engaged, but Sarah broke it off due to Poe's inability to remain sober. Frances Osgood, a prominent female poet of the 1840s, was once a love interest of Poe's, and he wooed her with the poem The Valentine, a cryptic set of verses which hid the recipient's identity. An excerpt from The Valentine. For her this rhyme is penned, whose luminous eyes, brightly expressive as the twins of Loida, shall find her own sweet name, that nestling lies upon the page, enwrapped from every reader. Search narrowly the lines, they hold a treasure divine, a talisman, an amulet, that must be worn at heart. Search well the measure, the words, the syllables. Do not forget the trivialest point, or you may lose your labor. And yet there is in this no Gordian knot. Edgar Allan Poe. Anne Lynch, a New York writer and socialite, often invited Poe to her gatherings, until it was discovered that many of the attendees were sending Edgar Allan Poe love letters of their own. This created a scandal, and Poe was no longer invited. And finally, Poe's childhood sweetheart, who had married someone else, returned to Poe's life after her husband had died. The two became engaged, but Poe died himself before he could marry. Poe was found semi-conscious in a ditch, disheveled, and not in his own clothing. He was discovered by a friendly acquaintance and was taken to a medical college, where he died 4 days later, incoherent for the most part, and unable to explain how he came to be in this dire condition. Many speculations as to the cause of his death prevail. Alcoholism, syphilis, swelling of the brain, heart problems, and even rabies have been suggested. According to his physician, Poe's last words were, "Lord, help my poor soul." Indeed, Edgar Allan Poe's madness and melancholy took a toll on his life, but history and his actions show that he sought to soothe and comfort himself with romance and love, not only alcohol. Each woman he loved fervently, and each woman would be his forever partner in his mind. No doubt, powerful natural chemicals were being released in Poe's brain each time he fell in love, a coping skill or mechanism that he returned to time and again. There are worse addictions a person can turn to, but I maintain that Edgar Allan Poe was a love addict. What do you think? If you're in love while you're watching this, ask yourself, do I really love that person? Or am I actually a love addict?